Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic / Non-Classic. This is episode number 771, Doubleshot number 665. I got two books here, two trades here, both written by Alan Moore. Yeah, one of the second of these two books is much more well known than this one is because this one, the first one here is infamous because of its adaptation to a film that got mixed reception when it was released back in 2002. Actually, it was 2003. Which this film caused the end of the career of Sean Connery. Yep, because this film is basically, he retired right after this. Him and the director. Alright. First up, it is The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Volume 1. Collecting the original 6-issue miniseries of this first volume. I heard that the current volume is published by Image Comics. Yep, and it's actually the 5th volume for the series. And yes, there was actually one volume published by Vertigo. Yeah, this was published through ABC, America's Best Comics, which was a company owned by Alan Moore that was then bought out by DC Comics for no reason. Now, the thing about Alan Moore is that this guy has kind of got a very bad reputation. Not for his work, but because of his, let's say, his bad attitude toward people. Where, especially Hollywood, where anytime any of his work gets adapted for anything, like either a movie or anything, he takes his name off, all because of 3 films that are adapted from his work. This, another book I have right here, and From Hell. Those 3 films, because apparently he didn't like them, so apparently he takes his name off all of the credits for whenever any of his work gets adapted, and he tries the best he can to take his work off the adaptation list. Yeah. The story for this is that we have 5 individuals here who are trying to save the world. We have Mina Harker, who is known as by her own name, William Murray. We have Alan Quartermain, Dr. Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man, and Captain Nemo. Of these characters, I had heard of pretty much a good chunk of these characters, but prior to us seeing the film, I had never heard of Alan Quartermain before. I've seen like one film this guy in it, and that was basically a film, I think it was with the late Patrick Swayze, where I did with him in the King Solomon's Mines. Apparently he's an adventurer, according to the main villain, a third-rate adventurer. As for in the case of William A. Murray, Dracula, that's where she's from. The Invisible Man is from a book from H.G. Wells called The Invisible Man. This is actually the Invisible Man from that story that they gave him a first name called Harold Griffin. In the original novel, he never had a first name. We just referred to him as Griffin. And I heard something that because of legal reasons, they couldn't use this guy for the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen film, so they came with a Invisible Man, and they confirmed this one's actually dead. Nemo, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Anybody knows that. Though, I've only seen 2 adaptations of the film. I've seen the Disney adaptation, which is a really damn good film, and the other one from the 90s where Captain Nemo is trying to start a nuclear war in the 1890s, and he's a villain. But here's the thing. The League of Extraordinary film actually is the only I've seen where he looks like he's Indian. Yeah, because that's what he's portraying here. Dr. Mr. Hyde. Strange case, Dr. Mr. Hyde. That's where I've never heard the story. I have heard of the concept of Dr. Mr. Hyde. I've seen it pop up in a couple of films. I personally, let's see, who's the writer of this character? Robert Louis Stevenson, yes. Have I read the novel? Now, of all these characters, the only ones I have read the original novels of these particular characters have been Dracula, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, The Invisible Man, and that's it. Just those 3. Now, in the film, they threw in Dorian Gray and Tom Sawyer. I heard the reason why I threw in Tom Sawyer, because, well, American audiences, obviously, because all these characters from British literature. Yeah. So these people are brought together by a character known as Mr. Bond, and it's a loose reference to the 007. Yep. I should point out that the artwork is done by Kevin O'Neill, and man, oh man, this guy's artwork is so bizarre. It's not terrible. It's just weird. Oh yeah, and the way the story goes is this: you have Mina Harker, I'm referred to as a not by the name again here. She finds Alan Quartermain basically overdosing on opium. Yeah, this is actually a real life drug that was from the 19th century. We also see the first appearance of Captain Nemo's ship, the Nautilus. Yeah, it looks like this. In the film, it's a CGI thing. Yeah, because I also heard in the commentary that the actors were staring at nothing for hours. Yep. And later on, of course, they do. Also, for some reason, with Kevin O'Neill, the way he draws certain women in the series, he draws them with this strange figure. He draws Mina Harker really well, but the way he draws other women in the series, where, what's a good example? Oh yeah, we even have Mr. Hyde. Yeah, that's what Mr. Hyde looks like in this series. That's not a joke. That really is him. Yep. And here's a good depiction of Mina Harker. Yeah, she's depicted very average, how a woman's supposed to look. But there's one woman here where, if you look at this character, like, oh boy, like, what in the world was Kevin O'Neill thinking when he did this? Let's see. Here we go. Look at this woman here. Okay. What's wrong with this panel? We have a woman with that gigantic chest, a big butt, and a tiny waist, even smaller than Mina Harker's waist. Yeah, I'm not sure what was up with him. Yeah, and there's some implied nudity. There's some very mild nudity in here. There is some swearing, not a heck of a lot. The way they have this old man, they find him in a boarding school, and they cover him in paint. And that's how they pretty much find him. Yeah, and after they recruit these two, that's it. There's no more recruits, and it's a good set of stories. Now, who's the main villain of this thing? Why, none other than Sherlock Holmes' villain, Professor James Moriarty. Yep. Oh, when he has heard of Alan Quartermain when he gets a chance to meet him. He had never heard of Mina Harker before. Mina Harker. Not really, no. And they also do not say in here she ever married Jonathan Harker. But, excuse me, I'm referred to as Mina Harker. Now, in the film, they made her a vampire. I honestly don't have any idea why. Now, in the novel, in the series here, Mina Harker is the leader. In the film, it's Alan Quartermain. Yep. I gotta say, I love these stories. They even throw in sort of a loose adaptation of The Final Problem, where they show Moriarty and Holmes go over near Ragshan Falls. They basically fall off, and Holmes survives and basically gets away scot-free, climbs up a mountain, and people would think it's so weird. Moriarty himself survives and later gets recruited by MI6 for some reason. Yeah, later on they do give replacement for Bond. Let's see, they replace him with somebody else here. Let's see, what is his name here? They replace him with Mycroft Holmes. Yeah, Mycroft Holmes becomes a new, let's say, superior to the Lady Extraordinary Gentleman. And of course, Lady Extraordinary Gentleman will come back in other stories. About several miniseries after this one, which I haven't had a chance to read. This is the only thing I read for them. This is by far really good. I'm going to give this one a 9.5 out of 10. It's really good. Kevin O'Neill's artwork is great for the backgrounds, and the characters look fantastic, but some of the women here look so bizarre. Mr. Hyde looks fantastic in here. Next up is a more infamous series. People know about the film, where it starred Hugo Weaving as the main character, and Natalie Portman as the female lead of the film. What is this one? V for Vendetta. Now, unlike League of Strange Gentlemen, when that was 6 issues, this is 10. Yeah, and I also heard something when this series was originally come out. Apparently, comic store owners didn't care for it, so they stuffed it in black bags and hid it behind their counter. Look, it's an adult-themed comic book, and yes, there's swearing in here. There is a way you can get around it. There is a thing called a top shelf. That's where video game stores basically do the mature games. They put the mature games on top so little kids don't reach for them. If you don't want little kids to read this, put it on top shelf. Yeah. Some of the stuff, apparently it did this for Alan Moore books and some Frank Miller books, which I'm like, seriously, comic stores at the time, what the heck was your problem? What was your beef with Alan Moore and Frank Miller? Yeah, the artwork in here is done by David Lloyd, which the artwork in here is really, really good. I think he did this one I think it was just after he did, um, I think it was, Watchmen. I think it was Watchmen or The Killing Joke. He did just before or after this one, and this was released, even though it was released under Vertigo, the trade. This is pre-Vertigo days. This is like for adults only. Yes. Now, a friend of mine, an old friend of mine, basically has one of these type of masks. This is called a Guy Fawkes mask. Yeah, these masks do exist. Now, mostly this is set in an alternate future where the UK is over and UK has become a totalitarian state, and also the film itself. I gotta praise the film for this, sticking really close to this novel, this original miniseries, and they didn't make changes. Like the main character mostly stays the same. Like for example, you never see this guy's face the whole film. In the case of the other character, what's her name? Natalie Portman plays her. And here she's a prostitute. In the film, she's an anchor woman. Yeah, mostly put they keep the story mostly intact, except they change the only changes they make that I can think of from this to film. They change who the villain is. They actually change the guy who is the film is not the main villain here. It's somebody else, and they change the fashion of Natalie Portman's character. That's really it, and also how they first meet is quite different. But this is one fantastic series, and I do highly recommend if people are fans of Alan Moore. And if you like the film and like to check out the original source material, here it is. And this is how thick it is. This is that thick. Yeah, but it's the late 80s. What are you going to give for that? And there is some nudity in here. Also, because of the totalitarian state, apparently they don't like people who are gay. Yep. I'm not sure what Alan Moore's message was when it came to that, but yeah. Yeah, where 2 lesbians were arrested and thrown into a concentration camp. I'm dead. I'm not kidding about that. This even happened in the film. Yeah, I was actually a little surprised. Even after watching the film and reading this, they actually kept that subplot from this novel, this graphic novel in the film. Which you gotta praise them for keeping a lot of stuff in there. Which not a lot. This is actually one of 2 I could think of where they adapt something written by Alan Moore and they keep a lot of it in the actual film. The only one I could think of that actually did that beside this one was Watchmen. Yep. League of Shadow definitely not. If I remember, I think it was the Wachowskis who actually wrote the script for Vendetta, the film. Yeah. Me personally, I love the film. And I think it's one of the more better adaptations of Alan Moore's work. I have seen the film From Hell. I have never read the original graphic novel. Yep. I'm going to get this one roughly a 9 out of 10. It's a good book. Not as enjoyable as Watchmen, but it's still a really good miniseries. And I got to admit, the Hugo Weaving, who actually, this was, when he played this character, this was actually his first comic book-based character. Hugo Weaving is also famous for playing the Red Skull in Captain America First Avenger and Agent Smith from the Matrix trilogy. So, at least he was filming with the Wachowskis. Yeah, and also, high praise for this guy for keeping a mask on the whole film. Apparently, Sylvester Stallone could do that for Judge Dredd. Yeah, he's one of very few people I actually think of who actually keep a mask on the entire film. The only actor I can think of who actually has done that has been Carl Urban from Judge Dredd, from the 2012 Dredd film. Yep. But, yeah, the way the series ends is pretty much the same way as at the end of the film, except that you don't have like a bunch of people wearing Guy Fawkes masks at the end of the film. Yeah, that was original to the film. In this series, they don't show the explosion of Parliament in here. In the film, Parliament explodes. Here, it's implied it explodes off panel. But mostly put, they keep pretty much how the original story has been, which I do praise them for that. Okay? So yeah, that's really it for this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode, which is going to be on a series written by Greg Rucka and another Astro City trade. Okay? But until I see you in the next review, bye.